And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis. Next to me, as always, is my beautiful co-host Laraib. As we are here, we are the week before the conference championship games. We were filming this on a Wednesday, a nice snowy Wednesday for me and Laraib. Him in Houston, me in Baton Rouge. I had a nice, fun snow day yesterday, playing around. Whenever it comes around, you got to enjoy it. But now it's a Wednesday, and kind of sick of it, but it's been a lot of fun. So we're gonna just do a mega episode here, some big reaction stuff to some NFL news around the league, and then we're gonna go into our full previews and breakdowns of both conference championship games on Sunday. Before we hop into that, we normally would do our picks right here, but Laura, we picked the same teams on Saturday and Sunday. How did that go for us?
50-50. Of course, the Ravens lost on two turnovers from Lamar in the first half and that Mark Andrews fumble and drop in the second half. And then the Lions, huge upset. The Commanders beat them in Detroit. We'll talk about that team in a little bit, but you're still up 1 point. I'm trying to do some voodoo magic. I know you're going with the Chiefs. I'm just trying to figure out, calculate all the scenarios in my head. What is the best course of action? I believe I have that figured out, and I'm confident, and I still have a shot at winning this whole thing. But that will be for later in the episode. We'll get to that. But let's talk about some of these coaching
Wait, Laura,
hires.
before we move on, you brought something up that I do kind of want to hit on before we move on, because this will probably be the last time we talk about the Ravens this season. Um, we both picked the Ravens, and I just wanted to hit on this quickly. In that game specifically, when we see Lamar across the stage almost 2 weeks from now, about a week and a half from now, accepting that MVP trophy, which we both pretty much think is Lamar's at this point. Not confirmed. Josh could still pull it out. Season of failure for Lamar Jackson.
Uh, I mean, you have to say yes. You have to say yes. Now, will I say he is a, terrible quarterback, this and that? No, but this is what they are now going for the past 2 or 3 seasons now. He's got the MVPs. They've been dominant in the regular season. This is what this Ravens team has been building towards since he was drafted. And to come up short in a game like this, obviously just sucks. I wouldn't say it's all on him. Obviously, those Mark Andrew plays were huge, but you can't discount the fact he had 2 turnovers himself, which were costly in a game that directly led to Bills points. And then on the other side, Josh Allen and the Bills, 0 turnovers. That was the difference in this game. And you just have to look at this season. You bring in Derrick Henry, you think, okay, we're going to at least be back to the AFC Championship game. We're going to be playing the Chiefs, but you come up short, especially in a season where you start off slow. This could be a different game if you're thinking the Ravens are the 2 seed and the Bills are the 3 seed. You're playing in Baltimore. And so just another heart-wrenching loss for them. But I still believe in Lamar. I still believe in Harbaugh. I think we still have a lot of football to be seen from this team and from Lamar. And I just have to see how it goes next year.
It is a failure for Lamar just because of, if this was this first year on the scene, it's all about perspective. And for these guys, the Ravens, going from what we saw them last year, AFC champion losers to the Chiefs, they had a game at home. Now you're playing a game on the road in Buffalo in the divisional round. So not only that, it's just a step back from where we were last season, but Lamar was playing so much better football this year than he was last year. And, if he wins the MVP, I will not be mad. Even following this performance, I'm not going to be mad if he wins the MVP because he did lead them down on a game winning drive. Now, did he lead them on that game winning drive because of some of the mistakes that he made? Yes. But ultimately, he got them there. Untimely drop from Andrews. And I see some people online where it's like, well, Lamar, he gave it out late. Andrews wasn't expecting it at that time. It's a timing catch. Timing. It hit him in the hands. There was no one near him. He was falling down. Perfect in the breadbasket. That is all on Mark Andrews. You can't simply excuse that. But looking at Lamar's path now, Derrick Henry's a year older. This defense, a lot of those guys, kind of older guys. But you always have faith. What I will say, silver lining for Lamar is Baltimore has been a great organization at drafting players, talent development, finding free agents who are able to impact their team. I think he's in a good situation. I think the AFC North, the Steelers, what the hell is going over there? The Browns still up in the air, and then the Bengals. The Lou Anarumo firing was weird, and now they might lose T Higgins. I still think they're in a good position for the future, but this was just another missed opportunity for the Ravens that in a few years they might be kicking themselves like, this could have been if we see the Bills going to Kansas City and win, the Ravens have got to be kicking themselves because we both picked the Ravens to win that game in Buffalo. I still think the Ravens are the better team. It's just the turnovers.
Yeah. These guys will be battling for a long time. We'll have these conversations, I'm sure, a decade from now, talking about who's going to be missing out on these last couple years and the Mahomes takeover. But that's just how football is, right? Sometimes it's any given Sunday, the ball doesn't go your way in a couple plays, and that's the difference. And that's going to be the difference in some of these guys' legacy. But that's just football, right? It's not the NBA where you have best of 7 games and you can have a mistake here and there. This is why we love football. This is why we enjoy watching it every single year. This is why we're going to continue watching it. But let's go ahead and get into those coaching carousel. Maybe not the craziest Black Monday. Might have been a Black Tuesday this year. We see the Raiders position to open up, the Jacksonville Jaguars position to open up earlier, the Saints, of course, the Cowboys. But I want to talk about some of the places that did get filled. The big one, Mike Vrabel going to the Patriots. And then they also bring back a familiar face in Josh McDaniels. It looks like we're having the resurgence of the Pats, dare I say. Maybe I don't want to say that too early. And then, of course, the Bears get Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn goes to the Jets, Lewis. So I want to ask you, out of these 3 guys, I think we both agree that Vrabel will be the most successful. But out of these 3 positions, though, these 3 openings, which did you feel like was the best one to go to?
The Patriots. I still think the Patriots was the best job opening. There's a compelling argument for another one, which I don't know if you want to hit on that. I doubt you will, but I do think the Patriots is the best opening because of all the cap space, the draft capital that they have. They have the 4th overall pick this season, and you have your quarterback Drake May, who showed a ton of flashes last year. A guy who you can really build around, and then I just love Vrabel. I've seen what Vrabel's been able to do, just this commanding presence. He's obviously been empowered by Elliott Wolf and Robert Kraft, this Patriots organization. They saw, Gerard Mayo was so wishy-washy last year. And although I thought it was a bit unfair of a position he was put in after a one-and-done situation, if you have a guy like Vrabel in the market, you have to go get him. Like I love, I think Gerard Mayo is a great guy. I mean, they've clearly been trying to cultivate Mayo for a while in that building. He's not cut out for it. Fine. Let's cut our losses and let's get the guy, Mike Vrabel. I think he's just going to bring back that hard-nosed Patriot way type of culture. And you can scoff all you want, but like whenever a guy can just command a locker room, what are we looking at in some of the coaches now? A few years ago, 5 years ago, it was we need to get our offensive whiz kid, wonder kid in the building to rejuvenate things. Because you saw Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, these guys, bring in and just changing offenses overnight. But now it's like there's a lot more of these Mike McDaniels and, these just offensive coordinator types, Brian Callahan, where it's like you're not really just inspiring people. You're not getting the most out of your players. And then you see guys like Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn, these leaders of men who walk, D'Amico Ryans, who walk into locker rooms and just their energy, their passion, their strategy, their ability to hire people and empower their staffs. And I think Vrabel does a great job at that. We saw in Tennessee, obviously a Derrick Henry, but not a ton of talent offensively. But he was able to energize his defense, and he had a ton of deep playoff runs with Ryan Tannehill being your quarterback. So I think having the guy in Drake May, all the cap space and the draft capital, I think they're in a great position moving forward with Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, and then I'll flip it on over to the Bears. I'm not the biggest Caleb Williams believer, but out of the teams who have a positioning open, you could say Dak has his ceiling. Maybe Caleb Williams can jump over that. The Jacksonville Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. I think his stock has only been going down the past couple years since they
Unfortunately.
made the playoffs and beat the Chargers. And so I like this Bears team, especially with the defense that they had. But bringing in Ben Johnson, this is the biggest question mark from a name that big, right? We were talking about him last season. Is he going to go to another team? He decided, I know I'm going to stay in Detroit. And now he gets to go to the Bears, gets to take over in his the division he was already in. And like you mentioned, are you going to be a Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan type of mind, or are you going to be that Brian Callahan who came in from Cincinnati, which and you had the pleasure of having Joe Burrow as your quarterback? Are you going to be Mike McDaniel, who had the pleasure of playing in the Shanahan system with that run game and that offensive mind? Now, can you lead men? Can you inspire people to change a culture, a losing culture in Chicago that's been there for the past 20 years, as long as we've been watching football? Um, can he do that? I think that's going to be interesting to see him and Caleb Williams, how they mesh together, how he implements an offense into their system, and how they can try and beat those other teams who had 10 wins, over 10 wins this season, in the Packers, in the Vikings, in the Lions. And then for the Jets, they get Aaron Glenn. I feel like Aaron Glenn is going to be that guy over Ben Johnson. Call me crazy, but Aaron Glenn is what really reminds me of that Lions culture, of that Dan Campbell locker room, where he's fired up for those defensive guys. And you think about the Jets, how that defense was playing with Saleh early in the season. We know they had the pieces, but when Saleh left, it all really crumbled. I think Glenn comes in, motivates those guys to be at a different level, or back to the same level they were earlier this season. And then for the offense, I think that's where they're really going to struggle, trying to figure out this quarterback situation. But I feel like Aaron Glenn was the right guy for the Jets.
Yeah, I want to touch on the Bears position because I do still like Caleb more than Drake. But I think a big thing from a coaching job perspective, and we talked about this last year a lot, and I know me and you have talked about this personally, it's also the ownership. And what are you getting from each ownership group? Are they empowering you? Are they giving you, a long time to figure things out? Or are they very short leash? Are they very hands off? Are they super hands on and intrusive? I think Robert Kraft and this Patriots organization, although there's always some weird stuff whenever you're that, successful, that popular, that comes out. But overall, I think he's an excellent team owner. I think he gives his coaches and players a lot of freedom, a lot of independence to make their own decisions, to make the right football choices. That's why I really like that. For the Bears, I actually was very impressed with Ben Johnson. I haven't really seen him a lot as much as he's talked about and he's been in the public radar for a while. I haven't seen him speak. I really haven't just seen his face. So seeing him in the Bears building today, seeing him go through his press conference, I was very impressed by his just charisma, his public speaking ability, and his natural leadership was very impressive for me. But I just can't trust this McCaskey ownership group where you have the old hag at the top, Virginia, who's over triple digits now, and oh, I love the Bears. And just all her family. Some people want to sell it, some people want to keep it, and it's just a who's who of what's going on in that organization. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. I like Caleb. I think Ben Johnson's gonna get a lot out of him, but I just don't love this ownership group. That's my biggest reservation with the Bears job. And then the Jets job, I love Aaron Glenn, former Saint, and I think he is a great guy who will. But it's just the Jets, it's Aaron Rodgers. What are they going to do with him? I think I think they're just hiring another Robert Saleh, and I really did like Robert Saleh as the Jets coach. It just, he couldn't mesh with Aaron Rodgers, and that's why he got the boot. What's to say that a very similar young defensive mind, rah rah guy is not going to do the same? And I agree with you. He will bring juice to this Jets defense, but overall, there's just way more question marks within that organization. Garrett Wilson seemed like he was ready to walk out of the door at the end of the year. Sauce Gardner looked pretty detached. And I think he'll, invigorate some of these guys, but you can't have Aaron Rodgers on the roster next year. That's my opinion. I don't think that him and Aaron Glenn are going to mesh well. I think it's just going to be weird because now Aaron Glenn's the new guy. So all the problems should be on Rodgers, but he'll find a way to deflect and make it on Aaron Glenn. And if you're a first time head coach, you don't need that headache. I'm happy you believe in him because I really do like Aaron Glenn. He's a great guy. He brings a lot of that Dan Campbell energy. But overall, I just think it's a tough spot.
Yeah, and Woody Johnson isn't exactly the greatest owner in the NFL either.
Or
For
his
me,
sons.
for me personally, there's two reasons why an owner's an organization's owner, right? Either because they're really freaking good at at their job,
Robert Kraft.
or they're really just freaking bad. And so sometimes that's why I know owners. And that's why I know Woody Johnson and company. And so there's a lot of trouble in New York. But I feel this is a situation where I feel like we're looking at this in the next 2 years, and it's almost Houston Texan-y in the way it's going to happen. You bring in the defensive guy, you draft a young rookie quarterback, and try to figure things out from there. And that's the type of thing I can see happening. Is it going to? That would be ideal for them. We'll see. There's always something mysterious going on in New York. But I want to talk about some of these other four coaching vacancies, Lewis: the Raiders, the Jaguars, the Saints, and the Cowboys. Out of those four, which one would you want?
Ah, they all kind of suck. I'm not gonna lie.
Now they
The
they all have their own pros and cons. Raiders, high draft
right.
pick; Jaguars, high draft pick; Saints, it's Mardi Gras season once a year. And then for the Cowboys, uh, Jerry Jones and his issues. But
That's
at
a
least
pro.
you have the best quarterback out of those four.
Probably the best roster as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking at these jobs, I think the biggest pro, weirdly to say, might be the Raiders because they have a lot of just room to work with. You just brought in the new GM from the Bucks, the assistant GM. I'm blanking on his name right now. Forgive me. But fresh face right there to kind of re-energize. You have a little bit of cachet with Tom Brady and the ownership group. Apparently he made a great pitch to Ben Johnson, and they had a lot of money to fork over. But the Raiders, what is the biggest negative for me, and it's not really their fault, but man, that division is just brutal. I mean, you have Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, and then you have these, Bo Nix is a young upstart at quarterback. Justin Herbert's a huge fraud. And Mahomes, obviously, my bad. Justin Herbert's a good young quarterback. And then Mahomes, obviously, the legend. So, like, it's just going to be super tough against those coaches, against those quarterbacks and teams to really make your mark in that division. So it's like, if you're the Raiders, if you're not getting a top shelf type of coach, you're just going to get passed over year after year after year. And that's kind of what's been happening to them for the past 30 years, basically. So um, they have a lot of digging to do with their next head coach. Do you need a big fish? No, you can try to find someone, a young guy who has a lot of potential, but you can't come out here and hire Mike McCarthy. You can't hire some run of the mill, oh, you're fun. You're Robert Saleh. Welcome to the team. Like, no, you need to find a guy who you can see out coaching or matching coaching with Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and Andy freaking Reid. So that's why that job is super tough for me. The Saints, at least you're in the worst division, right? You're in the NFC South, and you have some stability with the ownership group. Not a lot of exciting young players on the roster. Derek Carr, that doesn't really inspire confidence. And, the ninth overall draft pick. Jaguars, if you can reclaim Trevor Lawrence being back to what he was 2 years ago, or maybe even Clemson years, there's still something in there. I do believe that. But that ownership group has been just a complete mess the past few years. So I think the Trevor Lawrence thing is something you can cling on. And I think they do have some good young talent on the defensive line. And Brian Thomas Jr. showed up really big last year. So they have talent on that roster. They just need the right coach to cultivate it. And then finally, the Cowboys, most talent on their roster out of all of these jobs. You have the best quarterback, Dak Prescott. So ideally, this is a huge job, but you're the coach of the Dallas Cowboys. They are, I mean, that is like the head coach of the Lakers. That's the manager of the Yankees. This is the biggest spotlight in the entire sport will be on you every single Sunday. Everything you say, Jerry Jones going to be talking at press conferences about you that you're going to have to be answering questions about all the time. It's just a complete clown show that you're going to be entering. So it's one of these, like, it's a huge honor. And if you're a winning, awesome coach for the Cowboys, you're going to go down as a legend. But they haven't done that in 30 years. All these coaches who have been fired from there have all been mocked, ridiculed. Even still to this day, we call Jason Garrett the clown. A unenviable spot to be in when you lose and when you mess up. That's my spiel for all of them. If I have to give quick predictions, Laurent, I think the Saints are going to hire Joe Brady. I think the Jaguars are going to hire Robert Saleh. I think the Raiders are going to end up hiring. I don't know on that one yet. You have to come back to me on that one. And then I think the Cowboys hire Deion Sanders. Let's go.
I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna say the Raiders are the team that gets Joe Brady, the young offensive mind who doesn't have a lot of experience, is gonna have a long leash and gets to go into that division with not a lot of pressure on him. I think that would be the perfect situation for him, ideally. And he gets to draft a quarterback who he likes. Well, they don't have the number one pick, do they?
No, they have
They
the number
get
two.
to potentially draft somebody he likes. I just think that'd be a great spot for him. And then for the Saints, I think the Saints get McCarthy.
Oh,
I really do. I think the Benson owners kind of remind me of like someone who just wants that steady presence to come in and who's done it before. And you know who better than Mike McCarthy to do that? For the Jaguars, I don't really have a read on them. Their ownership, Shad Khan, is really lax. They don't really
I've seen a
fire.
lot of Salah and Mike Kafka from the Giants being floated out there for that
Mhm.
position.
Yeah, just some rando they can just throw in there to
Yeah.
be mediocre for the next couple of years. And then the Cowboys go out and get a Super Bowl winning head coach in Pete Carroll. I think he
Oh,
comes back. He
baby.
goes to the Cowboys, and I love me some Pete Carroll, a true leader of men. If he wasn't 100 years old, I would want him
Hey,
back as
he's
a.
the youngest 100-year-old you're ever going to see in your
Yeah,
life.
is
That
no
dude
one
has,
more fired up that you'll meet in
yeah.
your life than Pete Carroll. I think if there's anyone who can figure out that Jerry Jones personality and mesh with him, it is Pete Carroll. If they can find a way to do it, I think that would be awesome.
I love that. I think Pete Carroll would be so much fun to see again on the sidelines in Dallas. Because you know what? I actually really like that for two reasons. Because Pete Carroll's been there and done that. He's not some young upstart who's going to crumble underneath the lights of, Dallas or whatever. He's not going to be intimidated by Jerry Jones. He's been around the block. He's been a USC head coach, the Patriots head coach, obviously the well-established Seahawks head coach for years and years. And he's won at the highest level in every single where he's been. So he's got a lot of juice. The biggest negative, obviously, is his age. But Pete Carroll, you look at him, you're like, oh, look at that fun 55-year-old. Like, he still has the energy. Now, sometimes when you lose it, you kind of just lose it. But as far as I can tell, now the thing with him with Seattle was he wanted a lot more power, and there was a big power struggle between him, Russell Wilson, and GM. I can't think of his name right
John
now, Laura.
Schneider.
John Schneider. Eventually, Schneider won that battle over the other two, and it's looking like it's paying dividends. We'll see. I really do like that idea, Laura. I'm a big fan. But I think it is now that time, Larab. We are finally ready to preview the conference championship games. Put a lot of thought into these two matchups. Obviously, two teams moving on to go to New Orleans to go to the Super Bowl. Let's go ahead and get it started, Laura. The Commanders are traveling to Philly to face the Eagles. Line opened up at 5. It is now at 6.5 for Philadelphia at home. Over under 47.5, Laura. We saw these two teams play week 16, I want to say, and Commanders ended up winning a thriller in Philadelphia, mind you. Um, Pretty sure that was in Philadelphia. Actually, I'm not. I think it was in Washington. It was in Washington. My bad. But last matchup they did win. First matchup the Eagles won pretty soundly. It was a lower scoring game, but big thing to note in that game, Jalen Hurts was banged up, had a concussion in the first quarter, so it was a lot of Tanner McKee and what's his face? I can't even think of the
Kenny
backups.
Pickett.
Kenny Pickett, yes, in that game. Kenny Pickett threw an awful interception to kind of give life to the Commanders at the end. Big thing to see in this game, Laraib. What needs to change for the Eagles if they want to win and go to the Super Bowl?
For the Eagles to go on to the Super Bowl, it's been what they've been doing all season long. Run the freaking ball. I mean, Jalen Hurts, I will defend Jalen Hurts till the day I freaking die. I swear to God, I will.
Jalen Hurts to watch?
But he hurt his knee in that game
Ah,
against the Rams, limited his mobility a little bit. They didn't obviously weren't throwing the ball as much in those snowy conditions. But now against this Commanders team, who when Jalen Hurts has been on the field, they have just flat out dominated. I think they run the ball with Saquon Barkley this game. I said this about the Commanders last week that they were done. I said this about the Commanders 2 weeks ago that they were done. But now they are finally done in this game against the Eagles. And it's going to be on the backs of Saquon Barkley. And it's going to be on the back of one player in particular, my Super Bowl MVP,
whoa.
Jalen Carter.
Super Bowl MVP.
My Super Bowl MVP, Jalen Carter,
Whoa.
has done outstanding things in this playoff, has taken over the field, took over in that Rams game. When you thought the Rams were going to come back, they're only down 6. You thought they were going to win that game. Who slammed the door? Jalen Carter was in Matthew Stafford's face all day long, and he's been playing fantastic. I think that continues in this game. This Eagles unit as a whole has been playing awesome. The one thing I fear, Zach Bond, number 1 PFF ranked linebacker in football, but him in coverage on a running back is the scariest thing I've ever seen all season long. You think back to that Austin Eckler game, that was huge for the Commanders in that first matchup. Now, you said, obviously they lost that game handily, but when the Commanders were, on third down and short, they were targeting Zach Bond in coverage. He's a great, sideline to sideline linebacker, but whenever he's guarding somebody, it's chop cheese. That's one way the Commanders win. And then the Commanders on their game-winning touchdown against the Eagles. Guess who was playing linebacker in the middle, leaving Jamison Crowder wide open? Zach Bond. He's been fantastic. I know you know him from his time in New Orleans, but I feel like that's one way you exploit this
Not really.
defense, in the middle, where Zach Bond plays in coverage. But I just think the Eagles, they are the best roster in the NFL, remaining in the playoffs. I think they dominate this one.
Big thing that you alluded to, Jalen Carter, he's been the best defensive player in the playoffs so far. I think that's not even a question. And one of the biggest things that kind of got lost in the craziness of the upset for the Commanders over the Lions in that huge game, Sam Cosmi, a really standout guard for them all year long, who's been huge in the running game, tore his ACL against the Lions last week, so he's out. So now you get 2 kind of backup guards and a rookie center for the Commanders. That's Jalen Carter's territory right there. He's going to eat. And if he's getting that pressure up the middle, what I was really impressed by in these playoffs, kind of like my breakout star, especially for this Eagles team, has been Nolan Smith off the edge. He's been outstanding, getting to the quarterback's depth, keeping him in the pocket. Now, the quarterbacks you face, Matt Stafford and Jordan Love, not the most mobile fellas in the world, definitely not as mobile as Jayden, but still being able to get to that quarterback depth and just beating these tackles. And the Commanders have some solid tackles, but Nolan Smith's been huge, and this defensive line's been causing havoc so far. And so the Commanders, what they were really able to get some offensive presence was because they are so successful on fourth down because they're able to get to these fourth and shorts constantly, 4th and 2, 4th and 1, 4th and 3. And yeah, no problem. You're going to convert those at a high rate because it's a lot more manageable than a 4th and 8, a 4th and 12, a 4th and 10. But if you're not able to run the ball successfully, it's going to be that much harder on you to convert those. You're going to punt more and you become so much less efficient from what you want to do. And I think in this game, they're not going to have that success running the ball. They're going to force a lot of things in the passing game, which I think an interesting prop is Jayden Daniels has not had a turnover in this entire playoffs. That might start here at Philadelphia. I said this last week. I agree with you, Laraib. We both picked the Lions not only to win, but to convincingly win. And we had massive eggs on our faces. But the Lions offense relies a lot on the running game, obviously, which they kind of went away from. But it relies a lot on Jared Goff, who's had a lot of just up and down plays in his career. The Eagles' offense is running the ball. They do not put the ball in harm. Jalen Hurts, he holds on to that damn ball no back in the end zone for a safety, then throw a bad ball. We've seen that time in and time out. He is not going to put the ball in jeopardy. They are going to run the ball. I still don't believe in this Commanders rush defense that much. So unfortunately, I'm picking against the Commanders. Not twice. I picked them in that first matchup, unlike someone next to me. But I am picking the Eagles to win this matchup and move to New Orleans. I'm picking the Eagles 31 to Commanders 20.
And I'm picking the Eagles. Jalen Hurts
To
and the
watch.
Eagles. I swear to God, if anybody drops a touchdown this week, oh Lord, you don't want to see my wrath. But I don't think this game will be in any doubt. The Eagles win this game 28-21 and move on to the Super Bowl.
All right, Laraib. So we have one team set in a Super Bowl. Now let's move on to the next. We have the Buffalo Bills traveling to Kansas City to face the Chiefs. Another year, Laraib. The Bills beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Wow, this is the Bills' year. Let's go. And now we're here in the playoffs, and the Chiefs are like, all right, now you meet us when it counts. Our season, in Arrowhead, let's bring it on. And the Chiefs are going to beat them again, Larav. I'll just go ahead and rip the bandage off. I have the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl as well. Now, I'll get into more of the reasons why I do believe this. But, you know, they just positioned themselves so well with how they managed this regular season. They were so bad this year. They were so not fun to watch. Well, you end up getting a favorable matchup in the Texans last week. A young team making a lot of mistakes, putting a lot of it in the refs' hands. So that's on you, Houston. And then now you had the two best teams in your conference, the Bills and the Ravens, beat each other up on the Sunday night game. So you have an extra rest advantage playing at home. They beat each other up. Bills win a crazy game that went down to the wire. Literally, it was against Baltimore, the wire. Um, and so now, do you see the reference there? Because the wire
Yeah,
takes place in
yeah.
Baltimore. Yeah. So now you have this Bills team who just played a hard game against the Ravens, going to Kansas City on an extra day of rest. They have just positioned themselves perfectly. They manage everything so well. This is just the class organization in the AFC. And I'm going to throw some football questions your way, Laura. If the Bills were to win this game, what do they need to do against this Kansas City offense?
They need to be ultra aggressive, Lewis. The same way they've beat this team in the regular season. 4th and 2. Game is on the line. We're playing the Chiefs who are undefeated. What are we going to do? We're going to go ahead and put the ball in Josh Allen's hand, who's played at an MVP level this year, and say, do your thing. We will lose. We will win or die, live or die by the football in your hands. And then that time they won. And then last week, you and I both talked about this. Live or die, the playoffs. Sean McDermott, let's do something aggressive here. You're at the 2 freaking yard line with Josh Allen. We're going to go ahead and kick the 3 points.
Nope.
And then, you know what? If that was Mahomes on the other side, he's going down, he's scoring it, and they're going to
And getting the
OT.
2-point
The
conversion.
Chiefs are getting the ball first in overtime, and it's over. Well, they have the overtime rules now, but that game is done. But you got lucky. Lamar Jackson goes on the drive, but they drop a 2-point conversion. But
Game over.
conservative Sean McDermott is going to lose the Bills this game. I think it's as simple as that. I've been talking about this all season long. Playing to win versus playing to not lose. We talk about legacy. We talk about, your performances in the playoffs, what we live for. And Sean McDermott just simply does not play to win. He just plays not to lose. And when you're facing back-to-back Super Bowl champs in the Chiefs, who all they do is win, you have to take over this game. You have to be ultra aggressive. The difference between Josh Allen this year and last year has been his ability to protect the ball. If he continues to do that in this game, if he continues to go for it on 4th and short, I think the Bills have a good shot at winning this game. It's going to be a close game. It's going to come down to the wire, but it's not going to be in Baltimore. It's in Kansas City, but it is close to Baltimore.
Okay.
Not very close to Baltimore, but in the United States of America.
Right.
But I just think the Chiefs, with a little magic on their side, go back to the Super Bowl.
The black and white stripe magic that some people call it. No, I mean, you brought up a lot of good points there. Look at the teams in the NFC. Nick Sirianni, Dan Quinn, they love going for it on fourth downs. And I think that's becoming a new trend in the NFL. When you have these quarterbacks or these offensive systems that you can trust and these 4th and short conversions, you're just adding so many more points, so much more time of possession, so much more opportunities to score whenever you're successful on these 4th down conversions. Becomes there's so many opportunities a game that you're just leaving points on the board. And that's what the Commanders and Eagles have been doing all season. The Chiefs, they're not super aggressive, but they know when to strike, when not to. They've just a super veteran savvy team that knows exactly when it's the right time to be aggressive or to pump the brakes and be conservative. Whereas conservative McDermott, his whole career, it's like, it's 4th and 1 on the 50 and we're up by 3. Are you kidding me? We're punting this ball. And then the Chiefs go down and score a touchdown. It's like, uh-oh, you have Josh Allen. He's been playing outstanding football all season long. He didn't have to do much last week. I did say a big thing about last week. The Bills had a little bit more attrition in them. Last week, Josh Allen didn't do that much. He should be fresh, and you need to unleash him this game. He needs to be involved in unless it's James Cook holding the ball. He needs to be involved in every single play, no matter what, because he's been that reliable all season long. You mentioned he's been very good at taking care of the ball this season. He's been working on a lot of stuff. And if you want to win this game, you need to be aggressive, you need to unleash Josh Allen, and you need this defense to just hold up. It's been playing solid. The Chiefs offense has been playing a lot better too, but I really think there's 3 ways this game can go. There's the option 1, Chiefs beat Bills, crazy close game. Chiefs find a way to win. That's probably the most likely scenario. There's 2. There's the Bills barely beat the Chiefs. Chiefs crazy thing happens. Bills find a way to capitalize. Boom, Bills win. There is a world, Laraib, and I think this is more likely than the other option, where the Bills blow the Chiefs out. And I think that's more likely than the Chiefs blowing the Bills out. As crazy as that is, I can see that happening. Bills get an explosive 2-touchdown lead. Chiefs kind of get in their own way. Mahomes not really feeling a rhythm. And then, boom, all of a sudden it's a Bills avalanche. I think that's in the books. But the Chiefs just find ways to win. And Travis Kelce in the playoffs is a different beast. We saw him dominate the Texans last week. This defense well rested. Chris Jones made for games like this, getting in Josh Allen's face. He was a game wrecker last year in the playoffs against the Bills. I expect that to be a very similar thing, even though this Bills offensive line's been outstanding this season. And, there's such a good rushing defense, forcing Josh Allen these 3rd and longs to these shakier receiving targets than he's normally accustomed to. There's just a cleaner path for a Chiefs victory here at home, more time off. I'm going with the Chiefs, but I might be rooting for the Bills. I'm going with the Chiefs 31-28.
And I'm going with the Chiefs 27-24. Same exact score from last year. If DeMar Hamlin attempts a pass on 4th down on a fake punt in this game, just like they did last year,
he's gone.
Sean McDermott, you are out of there,
gone.
buddy. You are out of there. But that means we both have the Chiefs and the Eagles in the Super Bowl, a rematch from 2 years ago, meaning you are still going to be up 1 point going into Super Bowl. But I am confident in my team. I'm putting on the Jalen Hurts jersey. I've been doing it all season long. I'm going to ride it until the wheels fall off. Pause.
You have a best bet, Laraib?
My best bet, I haven't really thought about it too much.
I have one. I got a
Go
best
ahead.
bet. And I alluded to it earlier. I don't have the odds in front of me right now, but Jayden Daniels 0 turnovers so far in this playoffs. I think the pressure is really going to be turned on against this just different level of Eagles defense. I do think he throws a pick in this game, and I'm going to put even more on the table. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, you get you one against Jayden Daniels. I think that's going to happen on Sunday afternoon.
For my best bet, I'm gonna go with Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. Book it.
Big time player, big time moment, huh?
Yep.
All right, Laraib, well, that's going to do it for our conference championship week preview. We got into a ton of football stuff this episode, so it's going to be a bit longer crown emoji as we're about to crown a champion from each conference at the end of this week. So, and if we see that, we'll give you a little Christmas miracle. We'll say that, even though it's January
Little dong
22nd.
fong action.
Ooh, what is that with that Mardi Gras? Butler Rob, anything you want to say before we get out of here today?
No, I think that's the first go podcast signing off.
Peace.